We're back with the Driveline Podcast. Welcome to the Driveline Podcast with me, Kyle Boddy, and Tanner Stokey. Today we're talking about bat tracking and bat speed. We're talking about the Trajekt pitching machine. What is it and how did we get one? And we're talking about are starting pitchers dead? Welcome to the Driveline Podcast, where we have big hitter Tanner Stokey.
That's right.
And big pitcher Kyle Boddy, representing both sides of the bat tracking debate here. But MLB just released their StatCast data on bat tracking and a bunch of different swing metrics. What was it like experiencing Christmas Day as a?
Oh man, I've been hounding Mike Petriello for 2.5 years for this.
I think that is true, right? We have receipts.
Yeah, there's a bunch of receipts, bunch of Twitter DMs, bunch of replies. It's awesome, man. We're really excited. Come to find pretty quickly that bat speed matters. Just reinforcing what we already knew.
Get out.
But yeah, really excited about it. I think it's gonna be really beneficial for our big league guys we're working with. Honestly, it's going to be really beneficial for hitters of all ages, all levels, just like really understanding how important bat speed actually is.
Yeah, and, you know, it seemingly has taken a while to release. Hawkeye was installed in a lot of stadiums a couple of years ago, and we're just now getting bat tracking data. Like, you know, we've been trying to chase down some bat tracking here internally with markerless solutions, which is what the Hawkeye Stadium units are doing. They're capturing the swing data markerlessly. So what has our experience been like? How does that relate to Hawkeye? How does it not relate to Hawkeye?
So it's very painful. So I have a lot of respect for Petriello and the Hawkeye people and everyone that's involved, because it's a huge thing. It's not just Hawkeye just delivers it and then it's chilling. You know, it's like it's their IT department, the analytics department. It's a multidisciplinary thing to get it right, to get bat tracking right, or any tracking. So it's awesome to see the behind the scenes. At Driveline, when we're trying to do bat tracking, we've manually annotated, I think, 20,000 images of bats. So you got to teach a machine what a bat looks like. It seems like that'd be easy, but in a lot of ways, tracking a skeleton is easier because there's a lot of pre-trained models on that, but there's not a lot of pre-trained models on a bat.
On just sticks.
Yeah, and specifically the length really matters, because there's nothing telling you that it's 33.5 inches or whatever. So you have to really get that right. Plus all the different angles of it, lefties and righties. It's different color bats, different types of wood or metal bats, for example. Diameters, those things can all throw off the computer vision stuff. So it's hard. So kudos to the StatCast, Hawkeye, MLB, AM, everyone that's involved in it. It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned bat length being important. I mean, it's unknown to the public, like what bat length any hitter is swinging at any given pitch. And frequently it changes like quite a bit. So even if you knew in advance that like player X swings a 33.5, sometimes they just pick a different one out because they feel like it.
It's a tough matchup. They don't feel good.
Yeah.
Maybe how does later in the season they decide to go down a half inch or down a half ounce to make things a little easier on them as they're moving slower.
That's right. So does that do you think that changes the calculations, like the way that Hawkeye would have to perceive the bat and then calculate its speed or its speed, or like the speed of the sweet spot?
Yeah, I think the bat speed is pretty accurate, no matter what, because it's not like someone's going to have a 3-inch difference in a bat, like 10%. And even if so, that's not that big of a difference. It's more just the kinetic potential and if two players swing a bat 70 miles an hour, but one of them is longer, obviously that's more difficult. So it's pretty hard to get that. I would guess that they're not within 1 or 2 inches of accuracy there. So swing speed should be fine, roughly fine. It's going to be more about if you swing a bat, a 33-inch bat, 70 miles an hour, but then someone else swings a 36-inch bat, 70 miles an hour, the guy with the 70, the larger bat has better bat speed potential, right? Because he's swinging a larger bat. So that's interesting. But I don't think that at the big league level that it's a big difference. I think at the youth level in high school, that's where you're going to have a much different situation. Plus, you also don't know the weight of the bat, which is also pretty relevant. The speed is just one component of it. But again, it's a really good start.
What do you think? Like, how would bat weight or whatever influence like your decisions with a hitter? What you'd be like talking to them about?
Yeah, that's where you start getting into like the MOI of the bat. Kyle mentioned the different weights, things like that. You take it a step further, you look at the weight distribution. Basically, the MOI, moment of inertia, it's like how difficult the object is to rotate. Something a little bit more barrel loaded compared to something that's more balanced or handle loaded. The barrel loaded bat is going to be more difficult to swing faster. But you start getting into like the bat speed potential for exit velocity. There's going to be a slight trade-off with like a higher MOI versus lower MOI. Like higher MOI bat, you don't necessarily need to move it as fast as the lighter bat to hit the ball as hard to impact the baseball the same way. So like there's a trade-off there as far as like being able to get your swing off with more consistently with like a lighter, more balanced bat compared to a more barrel-loaded bat. Heavier, denser bat, denser wood, denser whatever. Kind of comes down to like which bat you can consistently hit the ball the hardest with, which one you can handle different type of pitches with, and ultimately like which one you're going to be most productive with in game.
Yeah. What are some of the interesting anomalies that you've seen with some of the early results of the bat speed data? So I know we started digging in a little bit, but like, what are some things that have been like curious for you to see?
Oh, the first things that stand out is the difference in speeds in different count states. Right? It's like every hitter from a young age is taught to have a two-strike approach where you shorten up, take a little bit off, try to make more contact. And for the most part with this data, that's been pretty clear so far, is that you have a guy in a hitter's count. Generally, when you could expect to see more fastballs, you can just get your A swing off more often. As you're deeper in the counts, two strikes, pitcher's going to throw their best stuff more often. You just generally don't see guys get their best swings off nearly as much. Interesting.
I'd be curious to understand, like, because there is a correlation between, bat speed and like expected ball outcomes. It'd be curious to know like just how much of the degradation in performance on like two strike counts is like just because guys are like
swinging the bat slower.
Yeah. Versus like what if that was reversed and it was just like, because are there any players who don't have a two strike approach? Like
probably.
There are. Yeah, I've seen there's some that swing faster with two strikes, which is very funny.
Oh, that's
yeah. Mike Petriello tweeted that. It was a couple days ago.
That's funny.
That's funny. Stanton is one speed, of course, but then there's a couple that have the two defined. They have the A swing, the B swing, but then there are some that with two strikes they swing as fast or faster, which is very funny.
That's great.
Yeah, the names don't come to mind, but they do exist. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think pitchers are looking at this data and like crafting counter strategies?
I think the most easy, the naive way is that I think what you'll see right away, I think the first thing what you'll see in the big leagues is that now that this data is public and more readily available, even to the teams, because it wasn't even available to the teams prior to this, is that players with low bat speed are going to just get targeted with a lot of fastballs. So I think that you'll see that right away. You kind of generally know it's not a surprise that Stan is the top of the bat speed, Joey Gallo, et cetera. So they get targeted by a lot of breaking balls. So there's no surprise there. But there are people that have like surprisingly low bat speed for their production. So I think that you're going to see quite a bit of like targeting of just players with 95 plus mile an hour fastballs will start to revert to throwing more fastballs, which is not the trend today, but to the lower bat speed quadrant players. So I think that's the first thing you're going to see.
Why do you think that's the first adjustment?
It's just true that players with low bat speed can't hit high velocity, and like there's a pretty clear correlation that's a thing. And also, just if you throw really hard, the biggest fear that you have is that your fastball gets hit, and your fastball being hit is most likely to be an extra base hit compared to the other pitches that you throw. So therefore, you don't want to throw the fastball that much. But not only someone with low bat speed unlikely to make good contact. Even if they do, the likelihood of a homer is much lower because of the much lower bat speed. So you have these anomalies of people who have extreme pull with low bat speed, so they have a surprising number of homers, but it's due to the artifact of their swing path. So throwing much if you do have a plus fastball, but maybe it doesn't have a great movement profile, you might be more comfortable throwing it to the players with low bat speed, and it just opens up another weapon. I think that's the easiest thing.
That's usually because there's less risk, right?
Yeah, just less risk. Probably easier to throw for a strike, although pitchers tend to disagree that fastballs are easy to throw for strikes. But I think you'll just see more of it. I think you'll see a reversion of what's currently happening in baseball, which is just fastballs are pretty much banned. So, yeah, like the Red Sox have thrown, I think it's the single largest change in the last 10 years or something like that in fastballs thrown last year compared to this year.
Well, Bailey's just got him.
He's got him dialed in.
Throwing
tons of sliders, yeah. Tanner Houck is throwing more sliders than fastballs in most games. Yeah, a lot of the guys primary. And you have like Brian Bayo throws 97-mile-an-hour bowling balls. Not going to go away from that. And he shouldn't, but he still has reduced his sinker usage considerably to throw more sliders and changeups. So you do see that across. That's all. That's nothing new. But I do bet that fastballs are going to become more popular. And the Dodgers do that too. The Dodgers throw the really low, I think bottom 5 in elevated four-seam fastballs. Like they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But whereas it's the Rays, Astros, Reds, the
Orioles.
Ones, the Orioles, yeah. And it could be the type of pitcher they have. They do have a lot of sinker ballers. But I bet that you'll see more fastball usage to the low bat speed guys. And again, it's just about let's find the smart teams. What have they been doing? Then you'll see what changed. And then you'll see, oh, they were ahead of the curve because that's pretty much always the case. Just like the Dodgers were early and the Yankees on sinkers being good because they're good again. Our Stuff Plus metrics show that they're good and better than four-seam fastballs in a lot of categories. And the Dodgers and the Yankees were on that very early, years ago. So, yeah, I think that's what would be interesting is you can verify what teams are ahead and which ones are going to make the adjustment right away. And that's what Andrew Wright and Tanner said. They were ahead of it, so I want to give them credit where it's like there's just going to be fans chirping people with low bat speed. And that's a function of that as well. Like this organization has a bunch of people with low bat speed, so they're going to get yelled at, and I bet some things change. And without outing anyone's names, we've already heard from plenty of our clients saying that maybe they'd like to see this data used more, and they've been frustrated, which again is the value of the Advantage plan, being able to manage that stuff in season for us, for our clients.
Who's what are the anecdotes of players getting chirped for having low bat speed?
Do you have any that come to mind? I have seen a bunch, but nothing comes to mind.
Oh, you're just saying like online people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Seen a bunch of it on Twitter so far.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Just more ammo hating on the guys they already hate,
Yeah.
Sure. Which is another reason to hate on someone that's more successful than you will ever dream of becoming.
Yeah.
That's right.
They've pointed out organizational trends though too. I mean, there's players like without naming him specifically, maybe, but it's just like hitting coaches being caught on a mic saying things that are probably not good, like are counterintuitive.
Oh, the C.J. Abrams thing.
All right, that's one of them.
What?
That's fine. No, CJ. And then like look at his production since then. He was obviously running hot. 1100 OPS, but his pull rate is down, so he's doing what he's asked, and his bat speed is, I think, good, average or something like that. Yeah. And then his production has fallen off. It's a really bad place. Also, he plays in a park that's a really bad place to hit fly balls in the air to dead center too. So that's fans are using that to chirp coaches and inform their heckling, which I think is great.
Nothing like the internet to take 3 seconds of a conversation that you have no context.
That's right. Yeah,
and draw infinite conclusions.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Do you think there's any like second or third order effects of like all this data becoming public? I mean, like on the one hand, you've got pitchers targeting low bat speed guys with fastballs, but like this feels like a real radar gun type moment where it's just like we no longer have to measure the pitch speed with a motorcycle or whatever. We can actually
injury analysis has to be just like pitch speed, and the betting markets I think will take it. It should play a role in your fantasy sports lineups and daily fantasy and betting and all that, which is no different than setting your lineup if you're the GM. If players' bat speed is going down, there better be a good reason for it. And if there is, great. And if there's not, then maybe there's an injury lurking under there. So, and that's what we see with pitch speed, of course. So I wouldn't doubt that we'll see the same thing on the hitting side. Oblique injuries, general tiredness, travel. It'll be interesting to see like teams that have extreme travel, like the Mariners and the Rockies, for different reasons. Mariners distance and Rockies elevation. Like, is their bat speed more likely to change due to fatigue and the extreme travel? And then that's not an injury case. That's just normal. It'd be interesting to see if those are things that happen.
What do you think, Tanner?
I think it'd be interesting to see how teams will, like building off of that, how teams will start to try to balance workload. Like after a long road trip, something like that, you see maybe an older player whose bat speed is starting to fall off after they've played 6, 7, 8 days in a row. Maybe find a way to get them an extra off day, get them off their feet earlier throughout a game. Just try to like maintain that production or maintain the speed longer throughout the season.
Yeah, and just being able to pick up on those things, or like we've had plenty of clients that love baseball, which is great. But in a 162 game season, if you play 150 of the games, and then you go 0 for 4 and you're taking like 200 swings in the cage afterwards, that's maybe not the most productive use of your time. Because what I like to,
what is just eat a snack?
Yeah, maybe
nap?
do nothing, just because you had one bad day. But what I try to remind people about the hitters is the defense has gotten so much better in the game, which makes it hard to hit too. But that also is like, these players have to focus on defense a ton. So someone like Mookie Betts, who's playing out of position, is taking 2 or 3 times, probably more than that, the number of reps that he normally would. Like he's not,
and a lot of full speed reps.
Right, he's not taking 100 fly balls in center or right when he was playing there. Like he's got it down. He's gonna do his thing. But then when he's playing second or short or third or whatever, he played there growing up and then as a young player, but it's been a while. So and he likes baseball, so he's gonna take 2 to 3 to 5 times as many reps as that he used to. Plus, he's gonna hit as much as he does, and he loves to hit. So then it's like quickly becomes a workload issue that you really want to stay on top of, because it's not like Mookie Betts needs to get a lot better. It's not that's how he calculates it. He's just like he's going to, because that's the way he's wired. So then how do you kind of rein that in?
Is there a way to do that in reverse though, where like if you like the traditional baseball logic is like you got to get these guys in AAA or AA, like that's where they're going to get all their game speed reps, and like we're going to keep them there so they can get 3-4 at bats a night, and not have them travel with a big league club. But if what you're saying is true, that there's like a workload component and like a game speed component of that you can start to replicate, especially with stuff like the Trajekt pitching machine and like all these other tools that are now available in the bowels of baseball stadiums. Like, do you think that the common logic starts to become like, let's just carry all the good players on the 40-man and just have them travel?
Yeah, you've seen that with pitchers in the past, as the Astros bringing up Mark Appel to just get some reps with the big league team. I think we saw a little bit with COVID, kind of weirdly, because they couldn't travel. So they had to stay, like the taxi squad had to stay with the team. And then instead of, they couldn't play, or if someone didn't get COVID, they wouldn't play. So they're kind of active, kind of not. But you're traveling with the team, you're not getting reps in AAA. So then it's like, how do you make sure they stay sharp? And so that's when coaching really matters. And when you have coaches like Joe Mather with the Reds, to give him a shout out, it's really awesome to watch now with the Diamondbacks, to watch in the NLDS, like the Reds lost game 1 to the Braves, and Mather, there was a taxi squad, and Mather like changed into shorts and then came back out and threw batting practice for an hour and worked with the taxi squad guys, knowing that it's almost impossible for those players to get on the field the next day because it's NLDS game 2. But Mather, he just cares that much, and he cared that much when Dan Comstock played for him, way back in the day. He was the first one. He would get to the field at 6 a.m. and Mather said, just buy me a Grande Americano or whatever, and I'll throw BP, because knowing that Comstock's a catcher and he's not going to get many reps. So that's, you do, but you got to have coaches that really want to do it, really want to make an impact. And I think people don't realize how important the best coaches are in the big leagues, because at that level, the coaching is not that relevant. But when it comes to going the extra mile with a young team, especially, and that's Andrew Bailey, and that's the Joe Mather, and that's the coaches that really make a big difference.
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious that you can pretty easily make a negative impact.
Yes.
Because
I think
it's like very easy to just come into a team, take guys out of like the way that they perform, or like institute rules that don't work for half the team or whatever. But it does seem hard to demonstrate like residual value at the big league level, just because the athletes are so good.
Yeah, it's the Carson Spires graph that I love to say. As Carson was with us, the Reds, it's like, if you wanted to make Hunter Green the worst pitcher in baseball, you probably could. You probably do it. Just give him really bad advice. But if you could you make Carson Spires win the Cy Young? Like, no. And Carson could do it, but it won't be because of the coaching. It's like, how do we get Carson from being an undrafted free agent sitting 89 to a big leaguer, which he is now? Like that's huge. But it's much easier to make someone worse, so you really got to make sure you don't do anything bad. And Andrew Bailey would be the first to say that too, that he hasn't helped them or whatever. It's not true, but like, it's just about making sure that the players do their thing the best. And I made that tweet too. And I know Tanner's talked about that too. And I want to focus on the hitting side. Is that it's like, like Breslow was in the media talking about, and Derek Johnson and David Bell, two prior with the Reds and many other Astros and players that have, or organizations that have good philosophies. It's very consistent. The players say the same thing in the media, do the same thing, and do the, whatever it is. The Colorado Avalanche in hockey, to switch to another sport, they do that too. The Nuggets in basketball, like the players tend to say the same thing. And it's like, isn't that simple? Like, just have them throw sliders instead of fastballs. But it's actually really tricky to get that right, So I know on the hitting side, you've seen that as well, Tanner, right? Like, it's like, at the minor league level, we'll do this, and it's one message, but then it doesn't always propagate to the big league level, or vice versa.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
What are some of those things that happen that are like, what are some of the bigger disconnects you've seen with our clients that either go to the big leagues or they're a minor leaguer and then they hear different things?
Man, honestly, it's pretty on brand with what we're talking about right now. And a lot of times it's with bat speed, the importance of bat speed. Like you run into some guys on the minor league level where maybe at their specific affiliate, like maybe the coaching staff really cares about bat speed there, but then they move up to the next level. Coaching staff there doesn't necessarily care as much, or just like generally on the minor league side, it's like a really big stressor for like what they care about on the development side, in their training, in their practice, their day-to-day stuff they care about in games, and then like switching to the big league level, it's completely different. Mm-hmm. So it's more common than anyone would really think how much disconnect there is, like top to bottom organizationally across baseball.
Do you think that the swing data changes that?
Yeah,
because like a lot of those beliefs are sort of these like pet beliefs that get to be held because of like anecdote and like this outlier who like didn't care about X, Y, and Z, and I worked with him and blah blah blah. And it's like, so much of the adoption that we've seen with like the changes to pitching, not just at the big league level, but at the collegiate level too, is like, what's getting scouted, what's getting recruited, what do we think we can change? And then the front office at the big league level just being like, pitch them like this, or firing guys who like take away breaking balls. Like, it seems like that's gonna have to eventually happen to the hitting ecosystem as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like with bat speed, like you can just liken it to like pitching and velocity. Mm-hmm. Radar guns. People really started caring about velocity. Wasn't necessarily believed across all of baseball in the early stages, as Kyle can attest to. And I think we're just really going to see the same type of stuff here with bat speed specifically, right? It's going to be really obvious that it matters. Going to know like the situational nuances and how it matters as MLB starts to release more data with mm-hmm. bat tracking and things like that. Like, still going to see how important bat speed is, but you're going to start to see more of the nuances that goes into being a really well-rounded, productive hitter. Mm-hmm. It's like your bat path really, really matters. Your bat to ball skills are going to play a factor. Your swing decisions are going to matter. You're going to start to see how bat speed changes like throughout at bats, like how your approach in different game states, base out states, things like that, count states, is going to impact your swing speed and how that's going to impact your production. So I think we're going to learn a lot as more of the information starts to come out. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point with Hawkeye where we'll start to see like publicly available biomechanics data or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But just like having bat tracking data and knowing how fast you're moving the bat, going to start to see things like your bat path, your attack angle, things like that. And it's been hinted at a little bit. You're going to start to see some sort of like timing metrics, like missing over, missing under, and things like that too. Mm-hmm. So sounds like a lot of really, really interesting information is going to come out, and it's really going to help us understand what really matters for hitting.
Yeah. The vendors of consumer products should be happy. I think they are. I haven't talked to them, but it's going to be global content. If you're 13 and you're watching the StatCast broadcasts and you see the metrics, I mean, they're on everything, so it doesn't have to be the StatCast broadcast, but You're watching Sunday Night Baseball, you're watching a Cubs game, and Boog Sciambi is talking about it, Chris Singleton on the radio, like people that have already been talking about Oral Hershiser. That might be the first time you hear about bat speed when you're 13 or 14, because it's not like you're plugged into Twitter hitting, you shouldn't be. And
not a performance mindset.
Right. How can I do that if I'm a 14, 15-year-old? Well, I don't have Hawkeye. Okay. Well, they use some camera system. Okay, that's not available. But then suddenly Blast and Diamond Kinetics and things like that become, that's not that expensive. The dad can look into this. And now the dad's being validated. This bat speed thing is some nerd said. But now, when Oral Hershiser, Boog Sciambi, or announcer is saying it, suddenly it becomes validated and something that you can do. And that can only be good for Driveline, but also for baseball in general, is I think we'll see a significant increase in adoption of bat sensors, which is great because they are great. They're great pieces of technology, and we use them all the time. We have for years. But it's just another way to democratize learning, and people will start to see that these metrics really do have a tangible carryover to on-field performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Tanner alluded to the phases of adoption or whatever, but like, if you put on our way back hats, I mean, we started this thing together in 2014. That was in the middle of you can't make the pitchers better.
Yes,
like that. It was impossible. Like, it's God given. And then it was like, oh, you can make the pitchers better, but it's just, this was actually the best part of the cycle was it's only throwing velocity. It's not pitching velocity, which is I think the equivalent of
pretty similar.
It's right now is like, yeah, you're making bat speed, but these guys aren't like long drive competition guys. It's gotta get off in a tight window or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's true.
You can improve this.
Yeah. But
I don't know if you should.
That's right. And then it shifted to, okay, you can increase pitching velocity, but you're not gonna be able to increase command. And then it was like, all right, you can make them throw better, harder, faster with nastier stuff, but they're gonna get hurt. It's like, we'll probably see that whole cycle play out. And I think the question is just we probably are better equipped at this point to handle managing oblique injuries and things of that nature versus what happens with the arm, just because what goes on at the elbow is way faster.
Right.
And probably way more stressful.
Yeah. The oblique injuries will probably, whether they're related to bat speed training or not, I don't know. But they'll probably start to get mitigated, just like the shoulder injuries are largely mitigated in baseball today. Whereas 30 years ago, catastrophic shoulder injuries were equal to elbow injuries, I would guess, or more, actually, I think. And then now with physical training and understanding and better nutrition and biomechanical teachings, the shoulder injuries have almost gone to zero. Clearly not actually zero, but so I think we'll see the same in bat speed or in just hitting. Certain injuries as they crop up will start to be reduced and so forth.
How do you think this changes scouting and recruiting? I guess is my final question.
The scouts are already so good at identifying bat speed that when I was working with the Astros, when I tried to pioneer that, it's just are they good at determining bat speed just with the eye test? And they are. They're really good at it. So the weird thing about this whole thing, it will continue to be strange for many years, is that it is very rare to find a scout that thinks bat speed is not relevant. It's very rare. They tend to prize it very highly, and then on the player development side, we don't. Which is very strange. It's pissed off millions of scouts that I know. I know for a fact. That's one of the first things that they're looking for is bat speed. They're not looking for launch quickness or any of that stuff. They want to know, does the player have elite bat speed at a young age, higher than the average person at their age bracket. Mm-hmm. So that's a 14-year-old Latin player, that's an 18-year-old high school player, and that's a 20-year-old college player. Right? That's just true about across because they're going to have to hit higher velocity at the next level, almost definitely. And do they want to know they have projectable power, right? And so then that's the Nick Madrigal hitting a ton of homers in college. Does that project to hit a lot of homers in pro ball? And almost every scout thought no, and clearly that's where we're at with Madrigal with a really low bat speed. But on the other hand, that could be used. His teammate is a great example of someone that's trying to improve that and understands his weakness, which is Stephen Kwan. Much less heralded prospect from Oregon State, did not hit for a lot of power in college, was a good hitter overall. Great draft pick by a friend of the program, Connor Glassy, and then he worked very hard to improve his bat speed. Now, his bat speed only improved a small amount, but it only takes a small amount to make a big difference when you're at that threshold.
Yeah.
And Quan and Madrigal's bat speed is more comparable than you would think. So now Quan has great bat to ball contact, skills. His swing decisions, I think, are average to above average. And then he's able to slightly increase his bat speed. And if he continues to do that, he may end up a player that hits 20 home runs. And then what does that do for his value? And you don't have to, I don't have to tell you that the people that understand this probably most acutely, besides the scouts, are the agents. They're like, oh, yeah, well, what would it mean for my bottom line and my client's bottom line and his family's bottom line if he went from an 8 home run a year guy, but, great player, 2 to 4 win player, awesome, to suddenly, if he hits the right side of variance, could be a 6 win player, right? And maybe is a 3 to 4 win player consistently. Mm-hmm. That's a big difference, especially given the fact that all the front offices tend to value players fairly similarly based on, quantitative models. So if he can increase his slightly bat speed, that's just going to be another input that goes into how players are valued in arbitration and in free agency. So I think that's how it changes scouting and recruiting for sure. You're not always looking for the best player with the bat speed. You're looking for players that could improve a little bit with your program, that have the right attitude. It just goes to show why scouts are always going to be important. And I've always said that scouts are more important today than they have been in the past, because it's not about eyeballing bat speed or whatever, although that's important. It's going to be like, is this player, you have to get the makeup right. And by the makeup, like, is he competitive? Is he willing to change a few things to get to where he's at? Because we have a lot of faith in our models. Can the scout, convey that accurately and get a good read on the player? So when you draft them, that you have a growth mindset player.
Yeah. We've been talking a little bit about hitting development. I think I just referenced the Trajekt machine as like a portion of the pitching or the hitting arsenal that is now available to guys when they're at a lot of at their stadiums. We just got a Trajekt.
Yeah, we did.
What do we think about that?
It's exciting, man. So like the Trajekt, it's correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Trajekt, it's a pitching machine. Basically has a projector. You can have like realistic release points for whatever big league pitcher you want to pipe in their video. It's gonna like pretty close to perfectly. You can mimic all their pitch movement like to a T. Machine is capable gyro spin, which like you're not going to see with like an iPitch or like an EAC type of thing. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be able to get more game representative, game like training, basically as much as you want.
That's right. As far as I know, yeah.
I think you did a good job. It's a gigantic pitching robot.
Yeah, it's a pitching robot with the projector screen that's synced up to the pitcher's exact release height.
Yeah, Kyle, do you know what the mechanism is that it fires out of? Is it a?
It's a wheel mechanism.
Yeah, it's a wheel.
It's like multiple wheels, yeah. But then it has like a conveyor belt that can like very accurately change the ball orientation and everything like that. Without getting into their patents and disclosing Trajekt stuff, because they're good friends of the program. But it's a very outstandingly engineered product, which I think quickly I'll talk about. We threw a great banger at the MLB Winter Meetings 2017, San Diego. Mm-hmm. That one where Saris and we had a bunch of people over.
Yep,
it was great. And then someone was like, "I always want to meet you, Kyle. I'm building a pitching robot, whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, good luck with that." Yep. Anyway, we got one of those. So goes to show that we're not the perfect predictors of who's going to succeed. So Josh Pope, who was there, was trying to sell me on the Trajekt. I thought it was a great idea. I also thought, no way. And 7 years later, his machine has taken over. Taking the industry by storm, and it deserves to. When I first got to see it really in operation at the winter meetings last year, I was sold on it before that. But then when I saw the actual operation, I was really impressed by the feat of engineering and how much they care about the product.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's a beautiful product. I've always said we should, get one. Every team should have one. And then when you finally see it, it's like, not only do I think that, you see how much Josh really cares about getting the product right, which is really cool to see. The team backs the product,
Yeah, that's 100% true. And then you just see it in action. It's like,
there's
full motion. It just comes out.
Yep. Yeah, especially with the Rawlings reduced impact and then smash factor balls, things like that. It's just going to allow players to hit off of those things, like stuff that we know is why smash factor balls are one of our best selling items. So just being able to reduce the amount of handmade injuries and being able to take a ton of game speed reps is going to have a huge impact on the game. Already has, but it will continue to have a big impact.
What do you think? What do you think the opportunities are for? I mean, so on the one hand, if you get the Trajekt and you just throw tons and tons and tons of pitches, like it's obviously good from a hitting development standpoint to just get the maximum amount of realistic pitches to see and try to get swings off on. But what do you think? What do you think the opportunities are for pitching development?
Yeah, this is what Tanner's worried about. And
Tanner's always worried about
Thanks, Mike.
the other side of the coin.
I've been saying it for a while about this.
It's true. You're just gonna get bodied over time because it's too hard to hit. It's too hard to hit. So they're just gonna have to back it up to like 80 feet.
That's right.
It's much easier for pitchers.
And any pitch over 84 is a ball.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. Some teams already treat it that way. But it's. I still think the Trajekt will be better for hitters. But for pitchers, I think it's more for the R&D team being able to simulate every type of. And by simulate, I mean actually throw, because Hawkeye was developed in large part by using simulation. Like they used animation software to simulate literally every type of velocity and spin and trajectory, which is really genius. It's like synthetic data approach. Now the Trajekt basically does the same thing, except that you can really throw a ball, like actually throw a physical object, and then train some computer vision models on it, for example. But the best thing that you can train that in computer vision is that hitters can just see a ton of pitches. They don't have to swing. They can see a ton of pitches. From the pitcher's perspective, yeah, there's all this advanced R&D modeling and so forth. But I think something naive and simple is, okay, you have Carson Spires, for example, with the Reds, and you're trying to convince him that a sweeper is better than a slider. And you could buy into, he's very coachable, the TrackMan data and whatever, but nothing beats seeing it just like it is. So Carson can stand in against himself and see, here's your slider and here's the sweeper we're asking you to do. It has a stuff plus difference of 9 points. So that's pretty big. But all of that doesn't mean anything to the player until they can really see it in action. And you can only watch film so much. So then once you see, oh, this is what I throw now, this is what you want me to throw. Okay, I disagree, I agree, like, what about this, and suddenly it's just seeing is believing, So that's where I think it will help pitchers.
All right.
But for the hitters, I think it'll still be better for hitters. For now.
For now.
For now, yeah.
All right, the next topic is, are starting pitchers dead? Would you like to see your way out? You said you had a meeting or something, right?
Yeah, I want to get this answer, though.
What time?
It's at 4. Time now.
4:15.
Oh, we're a little late. It's all right. Hitting staff can wait.
Yeah. Starting pitching is dying. I don't think it has to. I think observably it is dying. I don't think that's good. I don't think that it will be good for small market teams, because teams like the
starting
Reds,
pitchers to die.
Yeah, it's not going to be possible.
Not like literally die, but just like the idea of a starter going 6 innings going away.
Yeah. Well, the data is very clear in the fan engagement that they don't want that, right? Fans don't want to see an army of relievers that may or may not be with the team in a year. That's not great. They want to buy jerseys and players that stick around, and starting pitchers are the most likely way to do that, or position players, just players that play it a lot.
Yeah.
So that's not good for the league. So the league is incentivized to stop the dying starting pitcher, and I think they will continue to do that. I think it's a good idea. But additionally, managing a team like the Reds, they have a very strong mandate to develop strong starting pitching, and then that's Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft and the player and Andrew Abbott, the players they have, and they want them to go deep into games. And there's no plan for those players to pitch 120 innings per year. The plan is that all of them hopefully reach 200 innings. They want to push them, and they did when I was in the minor leagues, and that didn't come from me. Although I very much agree with that. That came from the front office, and it has continued there. And I think that's very important, is that you have to cover as many innings as possible. And they'll cite things like, the third time through the order, the starting pitcher is much worse. But a lot of these things are self-fulfilling prophecies. Well, they're worse the third time through the order because probably what we were doing was stupid as a league over the last 10 years. So what are things we can do to improve the third time through the order? And
What do you mean they were stupid?
Well, just like there's no way Hunter Green can become a 200-inning pitcher if he throws fastball slider only, right? He's going to need a third pitch, and now what he throws is a splitter, right? And he was throwing a changeup. They're constantly trying to do new things to just add to arsenal diversity. But that's hard to do at the big league level. You have to do that typically at the younger level. And it's why teams like the Guardians prize 4-pitch starting pitchers. So Tanner Burns is a really good example of that, getting drafted out of Auburn. And players that already come with 4 pitches. And then old friend Eric Jagers certainly has a hand in a player. The one that I've seen recently is Taylor McGill coming up through the Mets. His starts are funny because he'll start in AAA and he will have 5 pitches and they're classified as whatever. And then 2 starts later in AAA, he will have 6 pitches with 2 different classifications. Right, so it's clear that he's constantly messing around in AAA. That he got called back up to the big leagues and was really good. And so it's like obvious that that's how you want to develop. You're going to need a wider array of pitches, even if they're stuff plus, maybe below 100. They're maybe below average. Having extra pitches allows you to combat the third and the fourth time through the order.
Is this like a portfolio diversification approach where it's like, look, like you can make a lot of money if you just YOLO everything into a Tesla?
Right.
But like what you really want to do is like you want to own some commodities and some bonds and some stocks, and then over a 25-year period, like you're going to be much better than the person who just owns one stock.
Yeah, and we're already seeing with the fastballs, right? Because the Spencer Strider, these players with elite one type of fastball pitch at the top of the zone, but attack angle, I think Tanner can confirm, is going down year over year. Players are being able to handle the high fastball. And the two notable examples would be Robbie Tanarowitz at Driveline and Travis Pizzana, who have flattened their attack angle and their swing to be able to handle this type of pitch. So you're really betting that like this outlier pitch is going to constantly dominate baseball, but that just is not the history of the game. Sinker slider guys were really popular in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then it was high four-seam fastball, but we're already seeing sinkers come back. So attack angles are probably going to have to go back up, so
this
and hitters adjust.
So the bat tracking data.
Yeah, and hitters adjust faster than people think. It's just the hitters are so much better than people think, or is reflected in the data, and the league is incentivized to make the hitters better, so they're going to. So if you find yourself at 28 years old with 2.3 years of service time trying to get to arbitration and free agency, and suddenly your arsenal is not very good, and you need to add 3 pitches, that's not a great time to be doing that.
Yeah.
Like, it's much better when you're 20 and in college, or 21 and in AA or high A, and can actually work on these things.
Do you think you mentioned that the sinkers are getting better? You think that's exclusively an attack angle phenomenon?
I think it's just eradication of the bad sinkers. So it's like we don't throw bad pitches anymore in baseball. And that's the thing with bat tracking that'll be interesting is like the stuff plus models, like pioneered a Driveline and copied the world over. Those just instantly give you the grade on your test. Like, here's the test, you got a bad grade. All right, like you can't take that test anymore. Like you can't do that anymore. So then as a result, like it became very clear that most sinkers are below 100 stuff plus. So a lot of them have changed, and now people are just going to throw pitches above 100 plus, stuff plus, or close to it. And so as a result, there's a lot of ways to make a sinker decent. It's just that, you can't have a bad one anymore.
What are the ways to make a sinker decent?
You got to throw hard, so that's good. And a lot of horizontal run. So that's what I think what people are worried about his fastball shape is that, one, that Skeens can't learn, which is probably not true. I don't know Paul, but a lot of people who do know him say he's very coachable. 2, there was no stimulus in college to need to change. 3, in pro ball there might be. And 4, like he'll have access to better quantitative tools in pro ball, which all are true. And now his fastball shape is quite different now than it used to be in college. Mm-hmm. And he also sits 100. So that's helpful too. But he has a true two-seam fastball, whereas sure at LSU maybe it was a flat fastball. But now it's not. Just some small changes were able to make him, a much better fastball shape.
Which is what? Just the turbo sinker?
Yeah, it's just a bat breaker basically, and a 97-mile-an-hour splitter. So that's pretty good too. So again, that's a great. Not that Skeens is underrated. He went 1-1, but a lot of present concerns with players need not be long-term concerns with a player, because it's when you're in college and running people over. It's hard to make a change because you want to win games for your team, and you don't need to change. And in pro ball, you get the freedom to experiment. You're actively told that Skeens' outings in Bradenton don't matter from a results perspective. So then Paul feels the freedom to make changes. I don't know exactly what happened, but you can definitely tell that Paul's pitch data has changed considerably and for the better. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make him a bad teammate at LSU. In fact, that's just a natural type of thing. Whereas in pro ball, probably the right coaches and Oscar Moran and the guys there do a good job, probably just kind of illuminated like, hey, maybe we can focus on these things, and got together with them. And what you see is a pretty big change at the big league level.
You think that means that like from like an agency perspective, you just stop investing in pitchers basically? Like if
That'd be interesting.
like is it or do you think that the league is going to adjust so quickly? Like the league meaning the league office to change the rules? Like cuz basically what this whole like ecological discovery process that's gone on, you know, from the beginning of time. There was a time when sinker slider was dominant, then it shifted to like a more vertical attack approach. It'll shift back a little bit more horizontally, and this will just like, you know, ebb and flow as the talent level gets better and better. But that combined with the like 3 times through the order penalty, like, I mean, it's got to be it, right? That's got to be it for starting pitchers. Like, there's just no reason to invest in them anymore. There's no reason to do anything unless the league steps in and like resets the rules, right?
I think the league might not have to, but I think they will. I think they should. I think that there's ways to do it. It's really less about incentivizing starting pitchers, although things like the double hook are interesting. I think that limiting reliever
What's the double hook?
I was afraid you'd ask. I think like when you pull the starting pitcher, you lose your DH.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think there's that, which is probably good. Probably makes the value of someone like Ohtani worth a lot more. But
You think we'd end up seeing more two-way players?
I hope so. I mean, the
That
Caglione, the
type of
Ohtani, et cetera. It's just so hard, though. Like Brandon McKay couldn't do it. It's a workload thing. You know? It's just so hard to do either at the big league level. But I do hope so.
But yeah, if the rules change in that aspect,
Yeah,
I
I
think
hope
you'd
so.
start to see maybe 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
You start to see more.
Well, I think
More of those type of players
yeah.
make it
And I think to pressure that,
two-way during college.
Yeah.
Make it out of college as a two-way.
yeah, I think to pressure that, if you allow something like relievers have to face 6 batters instead of 3, would make a big difference in starting pitching as well as two-way players, because then it would be, you know, someone like Ohtani maybe doesn't have the durability to start. I don't know, you know, either way, but maybe it would make more sense for Ohtani to throw fewer innings and be managed, but play full-time as a position player. You know, it's kind of an interesting thought experiment, obviously, with him. But if you could have someone like Caglione, who's in the draft this year, going to go top 10, maybe he's not a starter. You don't think he is one. I'm sure some teams do. But making him a pure reliever, maybe not the best way to get the value out of him. But if you could throw 100 innings and come out of the pen and you feel good about him facing 6 hitters, then maybe that's an all new type of player. But then that means, you know, that you do really want your starter to go pretty long. Because you may not, it's hard to have a lot of good players that can go 6 innings or 6 batters. Because if you did, that probably exists already, you know. So I think limits on pitchers in the big leagues, limits of the shuttling, that's got to happen. Like the constant optioning back and forth.
What are the best and worst ideas that you've heard to like save the starting pitcher? Because there's been a lot of like proposed solutions, both publicly and like, you know, just bantered around or whatever. Like, yeah, and you can interpret best and worst however you would like.
Worst is moving the mound back. That's really catastrophic, I think, for the game. They can't even get to test in indie ball, you know. Like the leagues don't even want to do that there. I
Well, because it's so far-reaching too, right? Because then it's like
Little League and
do you like move the mounds back in high school? Do
Right.
you move them back in college?
all throughout the Dominican, Mexico, Venezuela, you know. So I just don't. I think they know that too. So that's not. I think that's one of the worst.
And I'm not
ideas.
even convinced it's better for hitters.
I'm not either.
It's like velo might be a little bit slower as pitch crossing the plate, but all of a sudden your sweeper with 16 inches of sweep now is 22. It's like, is that actually going to be better for a hitter?
I think it'll be a worse product.
Yeah,
is the most
pitchers are
important
moving
part.
more.
The hitters will
probably
probably
gonna see walk rates skyrocket.
That's
The
what's
hitters
gonna
just
happen.
swing less.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what's
swing less.
Yeah.
You can get away with swinging less.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Automated strike zone is going to incentivize them to swing less even more.
yeah. The increasing the distance will increase offense in the exact way you don't want it to, which is walks and the game duration and stuff like that. So, I like the double hook idea. I've heard some arguments against it that are good, but I think that's interesting. You need to create incentives, and I think continuing to eradicate the specialist reliever is probably the best way.
How do you? But that's just inning. That's just a number of batters faced rule.
Yeah, or you can declare like Josh Hader can face 3 hitters. Like you have a declared closer.
Oh, there's like what's that position in volleyball where they wear the special shirt?
Right. Yeah.
That person.
Yeah.
What's that one called? The libero.
Libero.
Look at that.
I think that's
what a
right.
reference.
God dang.
If it's not, it's going to be kind of embarrassing.
What a cultured man.
Like that,
Yeah.
Driveline volleyball.
That's right.
2028.
So I think that
Hide your liberos.
I just think you just ban relievers. Like you just ban them from throwing three batters. Like,
Do you see a world where it's like not necessarily, it's like getting rid of the specialist relievers probably falls under this umbrella, but do you see a world where it turns into, rather than just like trying to save what is the starting pitcher that we've known forever, and just like changing it? Like, do you think there's a world where it'll change to be like, rather than you have your 5 starting pitchers, maybe there's 8 of them, and rather than throwing 80 pitches every 5 days, you throw 45 pitches every 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah. I think some college teams have tried that, and they've had some decent success. So I think that you can see some of that. But, the union's going to be opposed to that, and rightfully so, because how do you pay these players,
But yeah, like in theory, then pitch counts are lower, right?
Yeah.
Like you can use your better pitchers more often.
Right.
You run into less issues with the third time through the order. So it's like, Garrett Cole could throw every 3rd or 4th day.
Right.
3 to 4.
But would they want to?
Yeah, the challenge is like who in history has written a $150 million 6-year contract for a guy that has thrown 45 pitches every 3 days? Like that archetype doesn't exist.
That could be much worse for injuries.
The entire labor model is built on precedence. So like if you go to arbitration, the arbiter doesn't know anything, like doesn't functionally know anything about baseball. Mm-hmm. They just are like, what are your stats? What did the people that have your stats get paid? And then they argue about it. They argue about like, oh, it's his stats aren't like those stats. It's like these worth set of stats for these reasons, or like, and there's all kinds of wacky stuff that gets brought up in those cases. And it's all, the entire thing is based on prior precedent, because that's the, the law of the land. They're no different than like, longshoremen or, truckers or anything like that from like a labor law perspective.
So I think limiting shuttling is the best idea. It's also my idea.
What about eliminating the 60-day DL?
Banning the DL, banning the injured list. There you go. Banning the injured list has been an idea.
But just the 60-day, not the 15.
No, they need the 15.
You need the 15.
Yeah. No, but yeah, you really want to incentivize durability. So banning the 60-day IL is a very interesting idea, where it's like you don't get the roster spot back if players have injuries. They reset every year. I think it's an interesting one for sure. But I also think that it's become a joke in the game. Like, okay, you go in the 5th inning, we're losing by 4. The traveling secretary is already booking your tickets to AAA. Like, if you have options, like that's just what's happening. Multiple players I've talked to, they just know that, like, if they pitch in a game, that they're going out there and they know they're being sent back down to AAA. Like that's terrible. Like that's a terrible mindset to have, and you can't control that. So being able to limit the optionality, like a lot of people are like, oh, well, you got optioned. Well, how many options do you have? It's like infinite in a season. If you've been optioned one time in a season, your option expires for that year. But they can option you 50 times that year, and that's free. My proposal is that should not be free. Like either that should not be allowed, or the team has a certain amount of options, or it costs the team money. You have to pay the player something. And so it incentivizes lower shuttling and higher durability. And I think that's taken to the brutal art by the Dodgers and the Yankees first doing that, and now all the teams do it. And yeah, it leads to more big leaguers debuting, which is cool, but it also leads to players not reaching the 4th year of their contract. So that's like they play 6 years and they end up playing 3.2 years of service time because they spend half of it in AAA tactically. So that's not good. And I honestly don't think the GMs like it either. Like they do it because that's what's right for the team, like financially, but I don't think it's good for the game. I don't think anyone thinks it's good, to be honest. I really don't.
All right. Any thoughts to wrap up with?
No. To be honest with you,
He's spent.
All right.
What do you got?
I got a meeting. to run.
That's it. He's got a meeting to run.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Very good.
Good return to the podcast.
Good return.
It's been a few years for me.
Been many years.
Second.